good afternoon, buenas tardes, and happy Friday. What a beautiful audience we have here. Thank you all so much for joining us today for the Impostor Syndrome Among Latinas charla. A couple of housekeeping items before we begin. Please mute your microphones during this charla. The only individuals that will unmute themselves during this conversation will be our moderator and our panelists. I invite you all to participate in the discussion by submitting your questions in the chat. Our lovely Beatriz will be monitoring the chat and will bring up the questions to the moderator when it is the appropriate time. We encourage everyone to have their camera on so we can see all of your lovely faces. Feel free to react and let us know how you're feeling in the chat. Let's make this conversation really interactive. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Jasmine Chavez, and I am the Virginia League of United Latin American Citizens, also known as LULAC, State Director. I grew up in Falls Church, Virginia, but I am originally from El Salvador. I am passionate about building organizing power and advocating for policies that positively impact the Latinx community. It is a blessing and an honor to work towards the advancement of our amazing Latinx community in the state of Virginia as the state director. We are very excited to kick off our very first charla. Today's charla is about a topic that we face as Latinos in this country. As a woman, as a Latina, and as a low-income immigrant, I grew up experiencing the imposter syndrome all the time. I felt it the most when I was in college, and I still experience it to this day as a young professional in DC. I know at some point we have all thought, why me? Or I'm not successful enough, or I can't do this. We want you to leave this charla today knowing that you are worthy, you are successful enough, and you can do this. Today, we are shining a light on the topic, and we will hear from 4 amazing, trailblazing Latinas from the state of Virginia who are here to share their powerful stories. We want you to leave this charla feeling empowered. We will also provide resources for you at the end that can help you overcome the imposter syndrome. Special shout out to our panelist and Virginia LULAC Director for Youth, Lisette Chavez, for coming up with this topic. I also want to give a huge shout out to Vilma, Beatriz, David, and Dr. Cruz for making this event happen today. Now I will hand things over to our amazing David Cruz. David Cruz is a broadcast network journalist and commentator based in Los Angeles and recipient of multiple Emmy and Golden Mike Awards. Today, he is a media consultant and advisor. Thank you so much for being here with us, David.
Jasmine, un gran gusto. It's my sincere honor to be with you today. This is an unscripted, unrehearsed conversation. I want to say at the outset how thrilled I am to be with the leaders of Virginia, these young women who are so poderosas, powerful, and then our panelists. Even that word doesn't do them justice. They are trailblazers. They are really out there courageously at the tip of the spear, and they're opening up new opportunities for so many of you who are like my predecessors. What they did for me, they are here for you. So I really hope that you'll allow me to just be the bus driver here and to just help to bring them to you. Ask them whatever you want. But we're going to begin with something that is so important, and that is the definition of the so-called imposter syndrome. What if you were asked this? Fraud, phony, fake, deceptive, dishonest. Maribel Castañeda, you're the first one up. How would you plead?
I would plead absolutely guilty. I have felt it. I define it as a dark shadow that has followed me to not make me feel proud of who I am, to not let me really own my accomplishments. So to me, imposter syndrome has been a part of some of these big pillars of my life and learning to overcome them has been a great success for me.
And let me say to you something about Ms. Castañeda. She works in the office of the governor for the state of Virginia. I want you to think about that very one-line statement. She is on the staff at the State House in the Commonwealth of Virginia today in the all-important area of appointments. So when it comes to selecting people for the many roles, duties, and responsibilities, she's in the middle of the mix. But she pled guilty to the imposter syndrome. Let me move on to another trailblazer. Valentina Vega, how do you plead?
Absolutely guilty as well. I mean, man, this has been something that I didn't even know it was called imposter syndrome, what I was feeling. And then right when I, understood my place in this world, and began to really think about, well, what can I contribute? I began to start doubting exactly that. Can I contribute anything at all? And I thought about, who am I? And is what I'm doing right? Did what I say, was that the right answer? Right. I second guess myself constantly. And just like, some of us here, like Jasmine said, her imposter syndrome kind of kicked in when she started college, and mine did too. And that's where I kind of started thinking like, oh no, I am not good enough to be here. I don't look like everyone else, so therefore this must be not where I'm supposed to be. So yeah, no, definitely guilty. And even now.
And I must call you out, even right now, you are not putting your title after your name. You and I talked about that. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you about this young woman. Valentina Vega is an MPH. What does that mean?
A Master of Public Health.
That's right. A master's in public health. See, when we in this industry, this profession that I'm a part of, ask America, what do you care about the most? It's always about three things: education, health, and public safety. These are the three overriding concerns. Here she is an MPH, a woman who's gone to some of the most prestigious centers of learning in the world, including Boston University, but she won't put her Master's of Public Health right after her name. See, that's part of the imposter syndrome. We're going to overcome that. You and I are going to have that conversation, all of us together. Let me move on now. Jacqueline Escobar, how do you plead?
Absolutely guilty. Yeah, I'm going to echo with what the girls have said, that it started with when I started undergrad. I walked in, I was super ready. I was like, I got this. And I saw the course load and I said, I can't do this.
Wow.
I was away from home. I didn't have friends. So it was very, very hard to see the journey that was coming. And I didn't think I could make it. But luckily, I was able to graduate last May. So a year now, and I'm working in the field I chose. So it's been good, but it was a long, long journey.
Jacqueline, your voice quivered a little and you caught your breath there. Why? What did you feel as you described that moment of having to move away from familia to pursue your calling?
It was a blessing in disguise, I would put it as that, because I am an only child from my mom's side.
Wow.
First generation. And sometimes I would sit in my room in my dorm and I'd cry. I'd literally cry and say, why didn't I just stay home or choose a school like 20 minutes away, but I chose a school 2 hours away and I couldn't take my car. So I would make my mom drive all the way to Richmond to just spend time with me on the weekends, and she would drive back. And I knew it was hard for her, but we are a team. And
let me tell you, though, your mother will treasure those journeys for the rest of her life. Let me tell you, because she was proud of her daughter. She left in that dorm as she left. Let me ask you this. You chose autism as the field that you work in. Why? Why that field?
Yes. So in our community, a lot of the situations that we face is people not understanding diagnosis or being afraid to go search for information, or maybe they don't have the insurance necessary. And I went into the field, especially my goal is to become a neuropsychologist. And currently I'm applying to grad school, so hoping that goes well. And I want to focus on our people, mi gente, because there's a lot that needs to be done. There's a long journey ahead for things that our people need to learn.
Jacqueline, you're doing exactly what God intended you to do. I'm so proud of you. Gracias for being there. Tell your mom she's got a great daughter. Jacqueline Escobar, we're going to get to know her a little better. And then someone who has such a gentle smile. Every time I see her, I smile because Lizeth Chavez has also been quite courageous. She is the director of youth for the state of Virginia there, LULAC. Lizeth, thank you for being a leader yourself. How do you plead to the notion of, are you a fake, a phony, a fraud, deceptive, and dishonest in your career?
I would say guilty. I'm like, right, because I feel it every day. This is my disability. Like, I always have to struggle and I always have to persevere every day. It feels like a challenge. But yeah, that's life.
I want everyone to know that Jasmine and Lizeth are sisters, if you don't know that. And I asked Jasmine, why aren't you on the panel? She said, well, my sister was braver than me. Lizeth, do you know how much we embrace you? And I'm like your biggest cheerleader. Since I've met you, you've been the one who's been that spirit holder. So thank you. Everyone who's on this call, please know, we don't know what's going to happen in this conversation, but those moments may occur. Y no hay vergüenza en sentir lo que tú sientes. You see, the thing that I want to ask them, and I'll go back to Maribel. Maribel, did you intend to be deceptive, or is it that you felt that in order to be who you are, but to compete within a very important structure in America, you kind of had to set yourself aside and be that person they expect you to be? Help me with that. How did you go through that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think identity has been in a lifelong journey to determine who I am. The question that Valentina asked, who am I? And it changes all the time. And finding yourself in these spaces of power, of more privilege, I think you really have to kind of stand outside yourself and really say that you do have a place and you do have a voice and you do have to raise your voice at that table where you belong at. With so many different political appointees that I make and in my job, in the nature of my job, I think it's important to continue to show that in my worthiness, that I am worthwhile of being.
But let me ask you a question, Maribel. Forgive me for interjecting, but I must.
Sure.
You sit there at the table of power. I mean, I hope everyone here can picture that. At the head of the table is the governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia. She's part of the staff. You're there. I want to ask you something I've seen Latinos do. I've been in many of these meetings here in California. I'm in LA, where Latinos will raise their hands, but others won't. They'll just start to speak. My question is this: what do you do?
I raise my hand. I do.
Do you? Como
Yes.
pedir permiso, as though you're asking for permission.
Yes.
Valentina, I see you going like this. Do you affirm the same thing?
Oh yeah, even right now in my position, I second guess constantly. I read over my emails like 3 or 4 times before I send them. And I find people constantly making mistakes, right? Like they didn't write whatever word, they didn't spell something right. And I think about it all the time. Like if I send that, what are they going to think about me? All the time. And I'll be really frank about that. I mean, I think it happened today at work,
Wow.
where I write this really fancy thing of, trying to tell you something that really should just be written in a couple sentences. And it doesn't matter if I make a mistake because everybody's allowed to make these types of mistakes, but I don't want to because I'm always afraid of, well, what are they, am I going to then be slightly lower? They're going to say, haha, look at, the mistake she made. And I'm always thinking about that because I work really hard. It's not that I don't, and it's not that I miss that, whatever. Yes.
So we have today, if you're just joining us, we have 4 powerful women from different walks of life, Latinas, each of whom are very accomplished. You have someone who works in the staff of one of the most important governors in America, but she raises her hand. Now, Valentina Vega has to think through before she sends an email, what will they think about me? Jacqueline, let me come to you. When you were having those moments of stress and loneliness, because being away from your familia, let me tell you, our daughter, when I dropped her off at Mills College in California, 4 hours from my home, I think I was the one who was more in tears than she was because she was my baby, but she had to go pursue her dream. Was your door closed or open? Did you feel that you had to isolate yourself? Because if someone were to see this, they'd say, "What's her problem?" Talk to me about how you played that role, Jacqueline.
Yes, I remember it clearly. I closed my door. I knew that my roommate was not going to come home anytime soon. I planned out my cry sesh. And yeah, I planned it out. I was like, from this time, I'm going to cry. And so that's how that went. And then I wiped my tears because I had to go on to orientation and no one knew. And till this day, I don't think not even my mother knows that I cried the day I left for college.
Thank you for trusting us, Jacqueline, to share that with us. Lizeth, it was hard for you to open up right now, but yet you're the one who picked this topic. I'm so proud of you because you're teaching me something. I was a stutterer as a kid. Who would have thought I've made my living doing this when I couldn't even talk as a kid? I couldn't talk. Lizeth, why did you decide to pick this knowing it was going to be painful for you to talk about it?
I'm just a very courageous person, I'd say, because that's how I learn. If I'm not brave, I'm not learning. Or if I don't take chances or challenges, then I'm not growing as a person. So that's why I chose this topic, even though it's painful for me.
Lizeth, where are you now in your journey? You think now we have all these women who are here and others who are watching, who are really cheering for you to succeed because your success is their success. You guys are probably down the road ahead of them. They're saying if they can do it, so can I. What do you want them to know about what you have to do every day to achieve what you're achieving? You're a leader there in the Commonwealth of Virginia for so many Latino young people. How do you prepare?
What do you mean? How do I prepare?
Yeah, like for today. I mean, here you are talking to an audience across the country, but you're doing it. How do you do that if you feel sometimes that maybe you're not adequate?
Well, I still do it anyways, despite feeling that way.
So you confront it, you deal with it, you face it. Maribel, how do you do it when you're assigned something that maybe you've not done before? I know when I'm assigned something that I've never done before, I've got to do 2 or 3 times the work. And maybe the guys alongside me, men and women, they do it like with their eyes closed. I've got to work harder. What do you do, Maribel?
Sure. I think your mindset is very important. And I've grown to adapt and adopt, I should say, a growth mindset and to think more positive about situations. Speaking on panels is still pretty new to me, I'd say. I really enjoy doing them. They're challenging. But like Valentina said, sometimes I get stuck in, what am I going to say next? Is it going to make sense? Is it going to be coherent? And I do it because I know that this is going to stretch me and it's going to make me grow in ways where I want to see myself be, which is a better public speaker, someone who's great at speaking on panels. So I accept challenges because I want them to challenge me.
Well, thank you. And thank you for accepting today's challenge. Jasmine, I know that the audience must have questions. Please, at any point, anyone wants to ask a question, send the question to Jasmine in the chat box. We'll be happy to take your questions. And just let me know, Jasmine, when you have someone that wants to ask a question. Jacqueline, what do you like most about where you are in your journey? And what do you dislike most about where you are in your journey? First, what you like.
What I like that I have a job that I wake up and I know that I studied my 4 years for that. So I feel slightly accomplished, I know there's a long journey ahead still, but I am grateful. I'm grateful where I am. Sometimes the things I dislike is knowing that I have to apply to the next stage and I might not get accepted. I might send out my applications and it might not go my way. And that's the scary part. And I'm fearing that. I'm truly fearing that. But I know that this too shall pass. And something else is coming. There's always something. Algo nuevo viene siempre.
I love that. I love that. Algo nuevo siempre viene. Valentina, Maribel, any tips you want to offer Jacqueline before we take a question? How would you suggest she tackle that uncertainty? If I apply, I may get rejected. I know what that rejection can be like. Many of us face it every day. But how would you help her, Maribel or Valentina, overcome that?
I just say, you know what the worst already is, and it can't get worse than that. And so I try to think about when I was placed in that situation when I was applying to grad school, I felt the same way, where I want to go to this school or that school, or I think this program would benefit me better, and then I didn't get in. But I knew that that was the worst outcome, is that I wasn't going to get in, and that's okay, and it's okay to accept that. I also, for me, for a long time, I was allowing fear to drive. And I think now I'm starting to realize that we are human, we are susceptible to human error. And at the end of the day, if I didn't make it, I have tomorrow to try again.
But
and for a long time, that was hard for me to I think, grasp.
There are people on this panel and people watching who say fear is like a motivator for them, but you say in some cases it wasn't working that way for you. Is fear a motivator? Is it good, bad? I mean, what do you think, Valentina?
I mean, I think it works differently for everybody. It must be, but for me specifically, it was taking me the wrong path. I was allowing fear to just take over rather than it motivated.
So it was paralyzing you. Maribel, yes. Does fear motivate you or does it paralyze you? Or is it a little of both? I don't know.
I'd say it's a little bit of both as well, depending on the situation. But for me, it motivates me more than it. Yeah.
I try to use it that way. And for all of you who are tuned in right now, let us know how fear plays in your life. How do you harness it and turn it into something that doesn't shock you? Jasmine, you've got a question. What is it?
Yes, we have a question from the audience. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Wonderful. The question is, what advice do you have for Latinas entering careers dominated by rich white men, like STEM careers, for example, like STEM?
Okay, who'd like to take that question? Anyone on the panel? Okay, you're competing with rich white men or just rich men. How do you compete with that? Who wants to try? Any ideas? Yeah, go ahead, Jacqueline.
So I took all the pre-med courses, and so I sat down with people that did not look like me. And I would receive a not passing grade, and the person next to me would receive a 90, an 80. And I just had to walk away and just say, you know what? It's okay. But it would truly torment me. But it was hard to not see people like me around me, because I couldn't say, oh, I'm going to go, like, can we study together or anything? I couldn't call my mom. I couldn't call my dad to tutor me, like I didn't have those resources. And it was very hard to hear maybe these students, their parents have gone through college, their parents have gone through grad school, and so they had someone there guiding them. And it's sometimes we have to understand as students too that it's not our parents' fault. Sometimes we might feel just a little frustrated with them, but it's not their faults. We all have different paths.
Roberto Q says, absorb the fear as a challenge to overcome. Thank you, Roberto Q. I love that. Lizeth, help Jacqueline. She's right next to you, at least on my camera. And she says she took the hardest courses, even though she knew she was going to be sitting with people who didn't look like her. You are part of a program called Walking with Purpose. How has that helped you connect with people who are similar and some who may be different?
Actually, I was one of the few Latinas it's like a Bible church group, and predominantly was white women. And I felt very intimidated because I grew up in a very diverse community. So just going to a space where like they all look the same, they look the same, and like they have like similar backgrounds, I felt intimidated. But once I realized that there are similarities between us, I think that's what brought me to be part of their community. So not just focusing on the differences, but also in
the
what we share.
similarities. And to the point that Melody Gonzalez just shared as you were speaking, Lizeth, let me clarify something on that opening question. It was a setup, okay? Of course, I know that you are not deliberately frauds, phonies, fakes, deceptive, or dishonest. It was never a question of doing that intentionally. This is what I mean by that question. Sometimes people want to put that perception upon you. What do you do, Maribel, when you feel that someone is trying to look at you kind of like sideways, like, what is she doing here? I mean, how do you deal with that imposed label by somebody else who's trying to make you feel like you're an imposter? Go.
Yeah, sure. I think that first off, others people's opinions of you really shouldn't matter. And it took me a while to understand that it's really your own self-identity and self-value that is truly at the end of the day what's going to set you up for the most success. And I've had the side eyes in different situations, and I do brush it off. I take it as, okay, I think I'm doing something right if they're looking at me that way. I have gotten to this point where I have stopped comparing myself to others because of the different levels of privilege that we all start at, whether that's race or immigration status or generational wealth, or some of the other factors that Jacqueline and Lisette were talking about. So understanding that their perspective is different, it's okay, it's fine. And we're all here to get the job done at the end of the day. So I think it's important to really take that and own that when those situations do happen.
Oh, I love that answer, Maribel. So you're using it and you're doing I don't know, I think you're doing like a kung fu move. You're turning it on them. Valentina, I want to ask you something. This imposter syndrome deal, do you ever get like backhanded compliments? Ooh, wow, I've never met someone like you with an MPH. I mean, it's kind of like a backhanded, like maybe not altogether a 100% compliment. How do you deal with that?
Oh, that's a tough question. Yes, it has happened before. You'd be surprised it happens. A lot of men like to point out that as a Latina woman, look at her and her NPH, and she's just doing, all these things. And I never thought that could come out of a person like you, right? I have gotten that before, and for various reasons, not only for my professional life, but also just volunteering and people just seeing this Latina amongst a bunch of white people, like, what's she doing here? So yeah, I take that and I use it more to just remember why I'm there, and why I'm being pointed out. And that makes me feel fierce. It makes me feel like I am in this, I should be here.
And Valentina, can I say this? And I want to say it to everyone, both the panelists and the audience. I'm a little nervous about being appropriate in how I ask the questions, because I respect all of you. I respect all of you. But guess what, guys? We need to learn a new vocabulary. I mean, for instance, someone has just told me, and thank you for all the great comments the chat box is bringing forward. They're saying, like, they're screaming at me, hey, these are called microaggressions. You guys have to put up with a lot of those in a given day, don't you, Jacqueline? Or is even that the wrong question? Jacqueline, help me, pull me out of this. How do you deal with the microaggressions like, Jacqueline, so are you the first in your family to go to school?
Yes, it's happened, especially during undergrad when I was surrounded by people that didn't share any of the things that I brought to the table. And sometimes it did hurt. There were comments that in their eyes was something that just slipped out. But to me, I thought about it for days, weeks, and maybe a month later, I would think about what that person said. And like Maribel said, I think you get to a point where you have to kind of reflect, okay, was this for me, or should I take it? Should I not take it? Because I know who I am. I know how I feel. I know where I am, where I'm going. But sometimes a little comment like that can make you take a slight step back. And we shouldn't allow someone to do that to us.
And look, I must confess, I've spoken to groups made primarily up of Latinos, and I look across the screen, and except me, they all have dark hair. And it does strike me because I realize that these are individuals in my community. Do you ever look out in space and you say, gee, I'm the only one here who looks like me? I think Valentina said that, maybe Maribel. Lizeth, you just said that you joined a group where all the other women there were not of color. So is it possible that you've changed their culture, and how have you helped to change their culture, their perception of the Latino culture?
I'd say, well, I guess one ways that helped me to be more open towards them is because I went to a predominantly white school in college, and that's where I learned how to navigate a predominantly white space. So that's why I was more successful in forming connections with the women in this group. But in college, it was really hard to do so.
Someone just said, we're all Selenas. Jasmine, help me, bring me a question or a comment. It's a great panel, great audience. Everyone's getting, involved. Jasmine, ¿qué quieren saber? What do they want to find out?
Yes, we have someone who is curious to learn more about Maribel's journey to the governor's office.
All right, how do you get to be in the governor's office? Give us the skinny on that, Ms. Castañeda, and I don't want to get you into political trouble, but how did you do that?
Yeah, sure. So I first grew up very interested in working for government. I fell in love with civics and how the government operated. So right after college, I came to Richmond with the idea of working in state government. I got a job at Richmond Public Schools. And after 2 years there, I wanted to make a change in my career and step to the state level. I had wonderful mentors. I have to highlight her, Vilma Seymour, who really took the time to, who really took the time to support me in that process. She helped me with my resume. She gave me suggestions for offices to apply to. And I got to tell you, another thing about Latinas is we really don't see ourselves or go for those jobs because we think that they're unattainable. And we really need to stop doing that. I'm still doing it now, and I still have to recognize that. So please, I'm guilty of that as well. So Vilma was the one who suggested, hey, governor just got elected. Why don't you apply on the website? And this was during his transition period. So I did, and I got in. And wow. I gotta tell you, David.
Were you surprised?
Yes. I was surprised because, largely the staff is made up of folks that came from the campaign side, or folks that had worked in government previously. So I really, I'm not going to say it was luck because it really was on what I was bringing to the table. So I was just so fortunate to have Vilma really support me.
No, you've earned it, but Maribel, you say that, but like I'm fortunate. No, you earned it. And let me say something. Your poise is amazing. I mean, I could see you on CNN. I could see you on any television set. This woman doesn't break a sweat. I've interviewed her. Well, we chatted a couple of times, and this one is like this. And Valentina, well, my gosh, she's so dynamic. Lizeth is shy. And Jacqueline, we're just going to tell you that, look, you are really you're breaking through walls. You just don't see it yet, but you really are. Jasmine, I just saw a comment someone made that they're a first generation physician. Thank you for joining us today. You guys are making an awesome impact. Awesome impact. I want to thank Vilma Seymour, who's behind the scenes, kind of as the executive producer, along with Beatriz Paz, whom I respect greatly. Also, my better half, Dr. Maria Elena Cruz. You know, guys, for me, just having this unscripted conversation, I have to delve into some personal areas, though, too. Are there moments, Valentina, as dynamic as you are, where you quietly cry inside, and that's what it takes to get this out of you so that you can pick it up tomorrow and take it on again? How do you handle those moments?
I cry for a little bit. Yeah.
Guys do it too, by the way. Okay. Guys do it too.
I believe it. I've even just this year, I started a new job 7 months ago, and this is the beginning of my dream job. I'm a health policy analyst. I went to school for public health law and policy. Like, I feel like I'm finally in mi salsa, as we say in Colombia. But there are moments where I find it like I'm being doubted for what I know. And so I have taken moments of rage. And I mean, if I could call up my friends right now and say, hey, prove to them that I've called you upset, crying, just angry, like help me out. Tell me that I am in the right place. Tell me that I'm right. Like that's what I need to know. And I've done it constantly, but you know what? You're right. That driving, like, oh, I need to make sure that they know that I am here because I belong here, because I'm supposed to be here. I went to school for, like, I have the credit to be here. Why are you doubting me? And so at that moment is where I kind of step back and I say, you know what, Valentina, you're exactly where you're supposed to be.
Wow.
And there's no need for, and crying helps. I can't lie. I'm a human. I cry. I yell sometimes. I sometimes have to go on a run to let it all out. You know, I do what I have to do to not allow those situations to take me a step back. I mean, as Latinas, and like everybody suffers from imposter syndrome. Let's not lie about that. But as Latinas, I think it's exacerbated, right? Like we're constantly thinking about, okay, I'm a woman, I'm a Latina, I'm in the healthcare field, and I'm the only person of Latinx background in my office. So that's tough.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, Valentina. I wanted to take your energy and ask Jacqueline.
Yeah.
How do you deal with tokenism, which is, you know, we got one of them. We got one that looks like her. We don't have to worry about it. We're okay. How do you deal with that?
I take it as a win because sometimes it is a win. Sometimes you have to know that there was a pool of applicants or there was a pool of in the interview and you were chosen. And so that's a little win for me. And yes, sometimes it is, we need one of them, they pick you. But if they picked you, go you know, take the victory.
So Lizeth, take Jacqueline's answer. What's a small victory today? Before you got on this set, having this bald-headed guy ask you all kinds of questions, I want to ask you, did you have a victory today that you could share with us that made you feel good about this Friday? Friday makes me feel good anyway, but help me with that.
Trying to think.
That's okay.
I work with elementary school students, and just seeing them even learning on a Friday over Zoom. Yeah, these kids are amazing. I don't know how, like, I work with kindergartners, these poor kids, and I'm like teaching them like letter sounds, and like it's a struggle for these kids.
You're talking to little chiquitinos on Zoom, and they're first graders?
No, they're kindergartners.
Okay, kindergarten. Mira, you are more blessed and strong than I am. Jasmine, thank you for sharing your sister with us because she's awesome. I love her soul. I love her spirit. Whose voice do you hear, Maribel? There you are in the governor's office. There may be moments of indecision, but there are probably a lot more moments of intentional progress and decisions you're making. Whose voice do you hear that you could share with us that motivate you to keep going? Whose voice do you hear inside of you here?
Yeah, I think one piece of advice that I wanted to share with this group that will answer your question, David, is as Latinas, I really find strength in other Latinas. So I love reading autobiographies. I read Sonia Sotomayor's My Beloved World, Maria Hinojosa, Once I Was You. And it's those strong women that I look up to and really admire, that kind of tell me to échale ganas, like keep going. And what's great about LULAC and what's great about my position, and I think it's just a beautiful thread, is the current CEO, Cindy Benavides, actually used to have my job back under Governor Tim Kaine. So I find myself reflecting sometimes in the office. We probably don't have the same office, but I envision her there with me, like saying, and I never told her this, so Jasmine, if you want to share it with her at some point, but I imagine her, standing behind me and really proud of the work that I'm doing because she was once there, and I just really admire her so much as a Latina.
Maribel, thank you for recognizing those who come before you. Someone wrote in the chat box, forgive me that I forgot who it is. Jasmine, maybe you'll see it. And she said, there were 10,000 before me, and there are 10,000 who will follow. I think that's the way it was meant. Or perhaps there are 10,000 with each of you who dreamed and still dream and will one day get to where you are, but here you are today. Jacqueline, whose voice do you hear in those moments when you've got to confront another challenge? And yes, we're overcoming the imposter syndrome, but you're prevailing. ¿Cuál es la voz que tú oyes? Aquí y aquí.
I would have to say my mom. I'm a mommy's girl because it's like I said, it's just been me and her. And sometimes.
What is her name? What is her name? Let's celebrate her name. ¿Cómo se llama tu madrecita?
Marisol.
Marisol. That's beautiful. And what do you want to say about her today?
Wow. I would say everything I could. I would take the whole 2 hours that 1 hour that we're gonna be here. No, but she's a trooper. She came here from El Salvador, so de Salvador, and now she has her own business. She's a pastry chef, and she is amazing in the sense that she came from nothing and she's baked goods for the president. There's some things that I am proud of her, and sometimes I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do for her and for my family. So it's her voice that I hear. I know that sometimes maybe some of you guys may know the phrase, calladita te miras más bonita. That is something that I've heard a lot of times. And my mom has always told me never to listen to that, never to follow that. Because al fin del día, I decide. And
I love that. That's powerful. That's powerful.
She's like, you see this? And that's what I hear all the time. You decide how you want the situation to go. Yes, the situation might already have a slight outcome, but how you walk out of it is what matters.
Guys, I want you to see something going on that you don't see because you're busy, again, here focused. And way to go, Marisol, from the group, okay? Way to go. And I hear your mama makes awesome pasteles. Que me envíe unos cuantos, eh? Necesito algunos. What I want to find out is this, Valentina. But let me tell you something. Your audience has been growing for the last half hour. That means people are spreading the word. There's something going on here. We have about 6 minutes left before I hand it back over to Jasmine. But Valentina, sometimes Latino guys and other people become intimidated when they see powerful women who claim their ground and who have earned their place. How do you overcome those moments? What do you do? Or does it matter?
It doesn't matter. I own it. I own it. I have to, right? Like I've seen some people say in the chat, like, you're right. I should be proud of the fact that I am the only woman in this position at my place of work right now. And I am proud, but it's also not right. Like that I shouldn't be the only one. And I think we've reached a point where in 2021 in America, I think we've reached a point where I shouldn't be the only one there. And it shouldn't have been as difficult for me to get where I am right now. So no, I own it. And if there are 10 more men that want to come at me, I'll own it then too.
Maribel, would you ever consider running for office? There you sit in the shadow of the governor. Would you ever consider running for public office? And if so, why yes, why not? Watch out, guys. We may have another AOL in the making here, but go ahead. AOS, yeah.
I haven't decided. I really
AOC.
enjoy, yes, AOC is great. I really enjoy working behind the scenes. Would love to be perhaps, a chief of staff or really in charge of managing the operation rather than the public figure itself. But I've warmed up to the idea of running for maybe local office. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility. So I suppose the answer is yes, but still pondering that as I.
Catherine Gooding says she wants to work on your campaign. You got the first volunteer. Jasmine, what do you think? Can we draft her to run for public office? Okay, I want to come back to Lizeth, and I know I've been jumping all over the place, but whose voice do you hear, Lizeth, when it comes to overcoming that imposter syndrome feeling and just keep on keeping on?
I'd say The voice I hear is actually my own. Like I say it out loud.
I like that.
Whenever like, actually like an hour ago before this, I was like terrified. But I'm like, Seth, you got this. You'll be okay. And that's what I do whenever I'm in a really scary situation or a challenge. I just tell myself they'll be okay, and then I'll be fine.
And you are more than fine. You've got the San Francisco Bridge behind you. My God, I lived there once upon a time. I tell you, I'm moved to wanting to be there again. But look, thank you for your sharing of the story. We have a few moments. If anyone else has a question, Jasmine, or a comment you'd want to share, please let them know, because I want to come around now and I want to ask each of our participants. I don't like the word panelists. This is more of we're all around a table, aquí platicando. Jacqueline, there's a young person listening right now and watching you who your words may make a difference in that person's life. What do you want them to know about how they get from where they are to studying the brain as you are, to figure out, maybe make a new discovery that will help us as Latinos overcome a disease that in part is worse on us because of environmental injustice, autism? What do you tell them to keep dreaming to reach that place where you are? ¿Qué le dirías? What do you tell them?
As simple as I can say would be believe in yourself. Because if you have a desire in your heart, you're not going to be content if you stop and I'm okay here. You're going to go down the line and you're going to say, I'm not content. I want more. Quiero más. So have that mentality. Quiero más, voy por más, and I want more each time. So keep going, be confident. It's not an easy task. It's not. Like Valentina says, sometimes you just have to cry and it helps. But tú puedes. Tú puedes.
Maribel, same question for you. There will be somebody watching who has dreamed but maybe never told their family, their partner, anyone they would someday like to work in the White House or in a state house. They're at the seat of power where you are today, and they don't think they can do it. Maybe because they don't think they're as cute, as handsome, whatever word you want to use, or as smart. What do you tell them?
I say share and talk about what you want in life with your friends, your family, with loved ones, because that is really a form of putting it out there, right? You're putting your desires and what you want for yourself out into the future. I'm all about manifestation too. And second, it's important to talk about your challenges too, and really discuss, why things are challenging. Being vulnerable, I think, is really key when it comes to growing and overcoming these steps, because I got to tell you, as a Latina, as somebody who really struggled throughout college, I didn't talk about those challenges or what I was going through. And if I had, I would have found a good support system in overcoming that, so that I, could maybe reach those dreams a little bit quicker. But I would say, I'm so happy to see so many faces here, because this is a form of that. While I would love to hear everybody that's on this call and maybe open the table up a little bit bigger, but I think that really listening to other people's stories, how they're overcoming challenges, is just a part of that. But you need to be able to also voice how you're feeling in your life, your professional or personal life. I think it's key. It's therapy, and it's good.
And if I may, I want to celebrate Maribel coming from Guerrero, el estado de Guerrero, Mexico. Let me say something about that part of the world, because I've traveled down there, and I can tell you, she emanates from a place of great history and culture and legacy and brilliance and beauty. And in the generations since her family arrived here, look at her now. And one day we will have someone like her in the White House. So we must aspire for that. That is what we are meant to do. So Valentina, MPH, the only one on this crew, give us something to take away today in the couple of minutes that I have left before I pass it to Lizeth. ¿Qué me dices? What is that dynamism that you could share with our audience today?
I'd say don't be too hard on yourself. Sometimes as Latinx, especially Latinx women, we tend to think that we have to be just grabbing things at a rate much faster than everyone else, and we have to be perfect, and we don't. We should be nicer and kinder to ourselves, because if we can't do that, if we can't find our inner peace when we're trying to achieve something, you're gonna find obstacles, you're gonna find challenges. There are gonna be times when your mind will be blocked. So I'd say be kind to yourselves. We're doing everything that we can, and I believe that we all have tried. And I, for myself, I know that I've done everything that I could be doing and that I could have been doing. I've done everything correctly because I am here now, regardless of all of the mistakes that I've made, regardless of the times that I've been told no. You just need to be kind.
You really have. Ya lo has logrado. You've achieved a great deal. We're very proud of you, Valentina.
Thank you.
Lizeth, I come to you and end where we began, with the woman whose idea brought us together today. The woman who said, do you guys know about imposter syndrome? Si un tartamudo como yo, if a stutterer like me can become a news anchor on a network across this country for 40 years, I guess anybody can do it. So let me ask you, Lizeth, what words of inspiration do you have for the audience? Lisa, don't do that to me.
No.
What do you want to say?
Yeah, no. I'd say just grow to be your authentic self, because that's what will bring you the most peace and happiness. Because if you try to be someone that you're not, then it's the opposite. You're always trying to compete, always trying to be someone else that you're not. So
Be you.
Yeah, exactly. Just be you. As simple as that.
Celebrate you. Lizeth, thank you, Valentina. Ha sido un gran gusto. Such a joy. Maribel, I am so in awe of your accomplishments. May God be with you always. And also, Jacqueline, tell your mama que nos envíe pastelitos, que no sea mala, eh? Thank you. And Jasmine, I hand it back over to you. It's been an honor to join you, and to all the people behind the scenes, including my better half, La Doctora Cruz, and of course, to all the folks who are with us today. Thank you. Los quiero mucho. I love you all. Thank you, Jasmine. I'll be seeing you around real soon.
Thank you, David. Thank you all so much to our panelists, our moderator, our beautiful audience for being here. All I can say is, wow. I honestly feel incredibly moved by the words from our panelists. I am leaving this event truly inspired. Thank you so much for sharing your stories with us and for being vulnerable. Being vulnerable is difficult, so you ladies should feel incredibly proud of yourselves. Huge thank you to David as well for being an amazing moderator. These conversations are important to have, and we are so happy you all were able to join us today. If you enjoyed this conversation hosted by Virginia LULAC, make sure to join us for our next conversation titled Generational Differences in the Workplace. I also challenge you to join Virginia LULAC. We have councils in Arlington, Falls Church, Richmond, and we have an LGBTQ council in Virginia. We are here for the community, and our work focuses on civic engagement, immigration, COVID-19 outreach, Latinx representation in the arts, youth and young adult professional development, LGBTQ initiatives, and more. If you would like to join, please make sure you let us know in the survey that I dropped in the chat. This survey will allow us to know your thoughts on the event, but will also let us know if you are interested in joining a Virginia LULAC Council. Make sure to stay in touch with us by also following our social media, which I also dropped in the chat. This concludes our event, and thank you so much to everyone again for being here. I hope everyone has a lovely afternoon. Hasta luego. We will see you at our next event.